Alright, so today I'm working on a 49 Ford Coupe. That was my grandfather's. And, well, it is my grandfather's. For some reason, the sending unit, when the tank is full, is only showing a half a tank. Well, I tried a new sending unit, and it's doing the same thing. If you short the ground here to the center wire for the gauge pegs itself full. So the gauge is working. I think the gauge is just, I don't know, a little out of tune. These are the proper resistance sending units that belong in this car. But for some reason, when they say full, it's not enough. It's not a low enough resistance for the gauge to read full. It only reads like half tank. So some experience with this before in the past is if you have a sending unit that's not reading right, you can put a resistor in line. Well, with this, we need to lower the resistance, not raise it. That's becoming a little bit of an issue. So what I'm having to do is, at first I took a 100 ohm resistor and put it in parallel with the circuit. So basically, you would tie one end of it to the ground pin and the other end to the center. Well, that got me a little bit better results, which means I have to go up in resistance, I believe. So what I'm going to do now is I have a 100 ohm and a 10 ohm. So I'm going to put them in series so they add the resistance. Basically, you just twist one leg of each together, and then you're going to put it in parallel with the gauge circuit, meaning one pin goes to the ground, or one leg of the resistor goes to the ground of the gauge, and the other will go to the center or the gauge lead. Alright, so what do I have here? I have on the ground side, or on the center side, which I'm going to call the positive side. At full now, I have 10 ohms instead of, before I was having like 18 ohms. And then at empty, full empty, we have 50 ohms, 52-ish. Which before we had 100 ohms, which I'm not so much worried about what the gauge reads as the car gets towards empty. I want it to read full when it's full and close to half tank when we're half tank. That way he knows to go fill this thing up, because it's got a fairly small tank and it's not easy on gas. At full, we're reading what? 10.3. Alright, so now I'm going to go turn the ignition on and see what the gauge reads. Because we were getting like 18. So now that we're like, I don't know, 5 less. Alright, so we want more than 10 ohms. Or less than 10 ohms. So that's not enough. So let me add another resistor in line. And we'll try again. 20, 30, 132 ohms. Something like that. Maybe 130. So let's see what we got. So now it's still reading 10. It's not going any lower. 22 ohms wasn't enough. What's it read when it's full? 56. 10. Well, I'm gonna add another one. I'm gonna add 2 more actually. I'm just gonna keep adding them. until I can get that number down. I wish I had a potentiometer that went down to 0. So I could just put it in line here. Make my life a little easier, but oh well. Alright, now what do we got? It's getting worse. Shouldn't it get better? And we'll just go to 30 ohms. Now when we're full, we'll read 9 ohms. Empty, we'll read 23. 8.2. Let's go see what that looks like on the gauge. That almost reads full. Let's see what it reads at about, it's probably about half tank right there. What's empty read? That's pretty good, honestly. Now this thing, I don't know if this arm would go all the way down or not in that tank. That pretty much reads empty there. I'm gonna go back up to full and let it come back up and see what it reads. I think that's the ticket. I think if we take any more resistance away, it's going to make it read a little more on the favoritism side, but I'm going to do it anyway, just for giggles. So that's 20 ohms of resistance in parallel with the gauge. Let's see what full reads. I'm gonna take you guys for a ride. Alright, so there's what full reads. Reads full. Alright, I'm gonna go drop it down to empty. Okay, that's where it is at empty. I'm gonna put that other resistor back on. Let's put the other resistor back on here and see if I like that sweep better. It won't show it as full. It'll actually have more of a full sweep. So there's full again. Working its way up. Working its way up. Yeah, see that's gonna be full with 30 ohms of resistance. And this is gonna be empty with 30 ohms of resistance. Yeah, see, it goes way empty, but it won't go full. It's almost like I need a 5 ohm resistor to have like 25 ohms instead of 30. Because if I drop it down to 20 ohms, then it doesn't go to the empty. Kind of just have to play with it and bridge the gap. I don't think I have a 5 ohm resistor. You go back to 20 ohms and see what it looks like there. You don't get full sweep for empty, so that's about empty. Alright, so it's empty. Let's go look and see what it reads. Yeah, so empty with 30 ohms. That's what it reads. Full with 30 ohms of resistance. It's still creeping up. This gauge is slow. So I'm thinking if I can find a 5 ohm and put it in here so that I would have, what would that would be 25 ohms instead of 30. I think that might bridge that gap really nicely. So I'm gonna go see if I can find a 10 or a 5 ohm resistor. you know what? Since that's 20 ohms, let me just put this, I have a 22 ohm right here. Well, actually, this doesn't read 22 ohms. It's supposed to be 22 ohms, but I think it reads 20. Huh? 22, 21.7. Let's see what these two read. $19.7. 19.8. Let me just throw this 22 in here real quick. Save myself a trip into the house. All my electronic stuff's in my basement. My resistors, all my electronic components are in bins in my basement. So, all right, let's see if we can get this to tuck under here. Come on, you can do it. All right, make sure we got a good ground. Now let's go check our full. So there's our full with a 22 ohm resistor. I can live with that. I'm sure an 88-year-old man can live with that. And let's check our empty. Our empty is just off the bottom. So that would be empty. Or close to it. So it's creeping its way down. I'll just tell him put gas in it when it hits a half a tank. Honestly, that's I can live with that. That's close enough to E for me. It's still moving too. Yeah, I mean, in an antique car like this, I'm not going to let that thing get that low anyway. You know, I don't even let my normal vehicles get below half tank usually. That's going to work out really nice, and I don't have to buy anymore. I was going to put an aftermarket gauge in it thinking the gauge was bad, but if I can make that gauge work that well with a resistor, I'm all for it. Go check full again. Oh yeah, I mean I can live with that. It's technically working, whereas before it didn't work. It would just read like empty all the time. That's me hitting the horn because I'm an idiot. All right, turn the key off, turn the lights off. All right, I'm gonna bring you guys in here and show you exactly how I did this. So what I needed to do was lower the resistance, not increase it. On empty, or on full, this was reading, it was giving me 18 ohms. That wasn't enough for that gauge to read full. So I put a 22 ohm resistor in parallel across the center and there. And that gives me a much less, well, not a lot of less resistance, but lesser resistance at full. Instead of reading 18 ohms, now I think we're going to be reading like 8. Yeah, 7.4. So if you put a resistor in parallel across the two terminals, it'll lower your resistance if you find the right ohm resistor, which mine happened to be a 22. So at full, it's like 7.6, and then at empty, it reads 18 ohms. I don't know why this gauge is messed up like that, but it's working enough to be functional. But it's just a trick. Sometimes you have to do this with different sending units and different gauges. But I just wanted to let you guys know that you can lower the resistance rating of your sending unit and make old gauges work again by adding resistors in parallel. Alright, I'm gonna make this a little more permanent, but for now I'm gonna put this back down in the tank. And seal the tank back up. But that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use that 22 ohm resistor because it gives me the best results. And it's just one of those things, you got to play with it. And I did replace this float. The other float was a copper canister and it was full of gas. Let's see what it reads now. I got about, I don't know, a little less than a half a tank of gas in here. Honestly, if that works, I'm probably just going to leave it like that. This car's for sale anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. Alright. So as a final installation, you see what I did. Just so you know, you just put the resistor across the two. Across the ground in the center. And we'll go up front here. Turn on the dash lights and then we'll turn on the key. And we'll see what it reads with a half tank of gas. As you could see it's kind of floppy. So I think the gauge is kind of wore out. See what it does. I know I got about a half tank of gas, and that's about right. Better than what it read before. Before it read 0. Pretty happy with that. Alright, I'm going to put the rest of these screws in here and call this job done. This is the Electronic Mechanic, and I just want to say thanks for watching these videos. I don't always get a chance to put out videos. I don't always get a chance to put out videos on a regular basis because I do work a full-time job. This is just my weekend hobby. Working on cars, working on electronics. I know I've been doing a lot more on cars than electronics lately. To me, this relates to electronics and electrical, so it's kind of along those lines, but it's also related to cars. So, but I just want to thank you guys for watching the videos. I see there's a few of you out there that are diehards, that are subscribers, but there's not many of you that are, and that's fine. I primarily made this channel to just help people fix their stuff. I'm always helping people get their stuff going and figure out problems. I love a good challenge and a good complex problem. So I just wanted to say thanks for watching, and have a Merry Christmas and great holidays coming up, and New Year and all that jazz. And we'll catch you guys on the next video.